Live from the ProCopy studio, in Perth, Western Australia, it's time for this week's Wine and Cheese.
Hi folks, bear with us while we get this happening. This is our first attempt at doing a very ambitious live to air. And this is a special edition of Wine and Cheese. As you can see, I'm here on my own at the moment. Phil is operating the cameras and David is operating everything else while we get this all happening. So we've got a series of guests today because many of us that have been in the industry for some time realise that the entertainment industry, the events business, theatre, arts, music have been heavily affected by this pandemic that's going on. So we thought it's about time to get a group of people together to discuss what's been happening in the industry and explaining to them, having them explain how it's affecting them, the prospects for the future, the work and the workflows that they go through, what they may have had to have changed, and what the prospects are for the future. And for the most part, the prospects are not very good. The industry itself has been fairly devastated. Government departments are yet to really acknowledge what's been happening in the industry. The Prime Minister has come out and yet again today he has come out and made a statement that within the industry they're going to deal with people and get Australian jobs back and work really hard to get people employed again. But that's fairly generic. That's not about the entertainment industry specifically. And he hasn't really come up with a plan yet. And we are months into this. It's likely that the entertainment industry won't see anything happen before the end of the year. People like Michael Chugg have come out and said they don't expect overseas tours to start until next year. I mean, anybody in the industry kind of knew that, but it's a pretty sad state of affairs that it's not really acknowledged that a lot of the work that is done in the entertainment industry is one-off events, annual events, filming jobs, theatre shows, etc. That money that people would earn is gone. It's not just delayed, it's gone permanently. They may get that show again next year. I mean, who knows what's really going to happen. But a lot of these shows, once that income has not been earned, once the profits haven't come through, it's gone. It's gone permanently. So we're going to be faced with a massive problem going forward. If we can't be guaranteed of some kind of income, how do we survive? Job seeker, job keeper, they're great for wages, but wages are just a small proportion of the bills that small, medium and larger businesses have to pay. JobKeeper itself is not enough. And there's been very few discussions, apart from Leaf in the last day or so, where they are having some dialogue with government departments. So a lot of people don't realise what's involved in the music industry, the entertainment industry, theatre and arts. There's a massive group of people involved in putting a performer on stage. Performances themselves rely on lots of people, and it's all paid from the ticket prices. Those people generate literally hundreds of jobs. What we've got here is a graphic that gives you some idea as to the complexity of how a show is put on, how an event is done, and the people that are involved in making it all work. Take a look at this. To put shows on stage and deliver a single performance requires a vast informal economy made up of full-time staff, casual staff, freelancers, sole traders, small to medium enterprises and larger businesses, as well as the wider hospitality and travel industries. All of these people earn their living from income provided by the audience. While this diagram does not contain every possible role or exact hierarchy of those roles in the process, it does show the reach required by box office takings. The actual performer is just the tip of the iceberg. So as you can see here, the show with a performer or many performers requires production and creative. There's a director, choreographer, musical director, etc. Then you've got the technical and creative side, the lighting designer, the sound designer, the set designer, costume, and many other people. These are not just one person roles in many cases, there can be many. Then you've got the venue, the box office, marketing, security, stage help, even cleaners. Then you've got a whole range of associated support, catering industries, journalism, design and print, all the flyers you see, all the brochures, all the adverts. You've got logistics, insurance, and even legal. Then there's a much wider, broad-based support, the travel industry, clubs, pubs and restaurants, retail businesses that sell product produced by these shows. You can see from this that the performer is really just the tip of the iceberg. There are hundreds of people involved in putting on a show. To not be able to put on a show denies all of these people an income. We'd like to thank Originate Design Limited, and in particular Martin Smith, for putting this graphic together, which highlights the wide reach and the number of people involved in the theatre and events economy. So I hope that gives you some idea as to the extent of the industry, what it's involved in, and how many people are actually working in it that rely on a performer to provide their income. So our first guest is Darryl Edwards. He's got a company called Matrix Productions. He's been going Matrix Productions about as long as ProCopy has, so roughly 32, 33 years.
Yep.
So Darryl, thanks very much for coming. You've been in the industry a long time. How is it involved and what do you do as a company?
Thanks for having me on. Yeah, we've been trading 33 years, like you said. We offer a whole range of services, but mostly lighting, staging, sound systems. We do a lot of draping. We work for all sorts of people, from a community events through to working with schools. We do work on festivals and concerts. Then there's things like expos and conferences.
So you've been across a lot of areas,
Yep.
of different types of business. Now, you actually put together a video the other day
Yep.
that explains an awful lot about what you've been going through as a business owner, a family man, an employer, and it shows the stresses and strains to a large extent that a lot of us are going through. I really empathise with what you had to say. So I think what we should do is we'll play you Darryl's video, and you can see exactly what I'm talking about.
G'day, my name's Darryl. I'm the founder of Matrix Productions Australia, a company I started 33 years ago. We work in the events industry. We hire lighting, staging and sound systems. My business is one of a group of businesses that is often overlooked because we do things so seamlessly people are not aware of the work that we do on many different events. Without companies like mine, many events that Western Australians love to attend won't be able to go ahead. That includes concerts, festivals, fashion parades, theatre productions, conferences, expos, even carols by candlelight. Can you really imagine a concert without a stage, a sound system or lights? Can you imagine a singer without a microphone? A school graduation without a stage? A conference without AV equipment? I'm personally concerned if nothing is done to support event companies that we may not be around in the future. If companies like mine aren't around to build the infrastructure for events, it's hard to see how that can go on. In March this year, I stood all 16 of my staff down when the government announced no gatherings of 500 people on the 13th of March. The JobKeeper scheme has allowed me to re-employ 7 of those staff members. Several found other work and some weren't eligible. The impact of COVID-19 has been catastrophic on the events industry. In April and May this year, my business did less than 1% of its usual turnover. That's a 99% drop in business. For example, last week we did one $66 job. That doesn't even pay the workers' comp insurance on the guys that I have on JobKeeper. Because we've had such a dramatic downturn in business, I am unable to employ all my staff. We are only eligible for the minimum payment on the cash booster. Based on my usual figures over the last year, the last 3 years, and possibly even the last 10 years, we would have received almost the full amount. That's the difference of approximately $20,000 to $70,000 or $80,000. Very significant amount of money when we're in so much trouble. At this point in time, if we can't get back to work or we don't get some help, it's very likely that my business will go into administration. I'll lose my home, and all my staff will become unemployed. Many of my staff have been with me for 10 or 15 years. One of the finance companies has already made moves to take my house. They are not a bank, so they're not covered with the agreement with the government. I absolutely appreciate how complex things are in the community. I really do think the government did the right thing with all the lockdowns. But the businesses that have been affected the most really do need some help. Events drive a lot of economic activity in the community. They contribute to tourism, hospitality, transport, aviation, and many other areas. The media has helped raise the profile of artists and what impact COVID-19 has on them. Without the companies like mine to build stages and all the infrastructure that goes along with events, they will have nowhere to perform in the future. Artists will not be able to perform if there are no stages, no sound systems, no lights. Many businesses in Western Australia only service the events industry. So, for example, I'm in Bayswater. Just in this area in Bayswater and Bassendean, there are 30 events businesses and we employ over 300 people just in this one small area. I've spoken to all these businesses and they're in much the same situation as mine. Personally, I've spoken to many other people in my situation and we all feel we need to either get back to work or we're going to need some help. Is it in the community interest if my business and many businesses like mine stop trading? We need urgent help to continue.
So Darryl, I've got to say, from one small business owner to another, that's pretty heart-wrenching stuff. I mean, it really is putting your heart on this out for everybody to see there. What happened? What was the sequence of events? Give us a quick rundown of what you went from and to.
So the impact of COVID-19 for us really started in February. People started cancelling jobs about mid-February. And then in March, we just had quite a significant number of jobs cancel. March 13th, the Prime Minister made the announcement and pretty much every future booking that we had was cancelled. So right now, we've got 10 jobs between now and the end of the year. We usually do 2,000 jobs a year. So
you've gone from 2,000 to 10?
10, yeah. It's,
that is staggering. Who knows that, apart from us?
Yeah.
Who knows that that's the impact of that decision?
Yeah. As well as the video, I've written a letter and I collected some data and made an Excel spreadsheet. So I've been as strategic as I can, sending it to anybody that I think can have an impact on any decision making that the government does. I've following it up with phone calls and I'm getting a small amount of traction, having meetings and just taking the opportunity just to meet as many new people as I can that may be able to have some sort of sway to help our industry.
There are very few advocates for the industry, aren't there, really, when you look at it? I mean, we don't have a centralised body.
No.
There are fragmented areas with little bodies in it, but there's no big voice. I mean, if we were the AFL, and I heard some staggering figures today, that there's more people involved in the events industry throughout Australia than there is with the AFL.
Yes.
I mean, seriously, they've got tens of millions of dollars worth of handouts. They've had situations pandered to them a lot of the time so that they can go and play. It seems completely disproportionate to me.
Me too. And one of the things that I tried to find out over the last few weeks was how many people are employed under the Live Performance Award and how many people are employed under the Amusement Events and Recreation Award. Nobody can tell me. So I've made contact with the Bureau of Statistics and they couldn't tell me.
No, because the figures they collect are very generic. It's like, and if people don't know what they're classified as, they don't put it in there. So you can't do it. It's ridiculous. How did you feel when you realised what was starting to happen? I mean, I know what I felt through, and I still am.
Yeah. So I think I've been really energised by all this. I'm angry. I'm not a very angry person, but and that's just been building. And
is that frustration?
Frustration, rage. It's and a couple of weeks ago, my accounts lady came in, and she hasn't been coming in very often because there's nothing for her to do because we're not doing any business. And she deals with a lot of other businesses, and she said quite a few of her businesses have been a bit affected by COVID-19. Some are doing better under COVID-19, and she said, you're all but wiped out, and you're getting the minimum payment under the cash booster payment. And some of these businesses that are doing better than normal are getting the full benefit of that. And it just, that inequity is just really...
Is that because they're part of a business structure that's got more sway than...
no, any Australian business is entitled to the cash booster payment is done through the ATO, through your BAS statements. It's just when I'm not employing all my staff and I'm not doing any business, I don't meet the eligibility to get the full benefit of the payment. And it just seems just unfair that the people that are suffering the most are getting the least amount of help.
So if you were trading, you would have got more benefit. Probably.
4 times more, based on my figures from the same time last year, 4 times what I'm getting now. It's,
right.
So
people need to know this kind of thing. I'm sure you're not the only business that's been affected in that way, where they're just literally going, how the hell are we going to make ends meet?
Yeah.
What potential issues do you see going forward as we're expected to reopen and be trading and everybody's happy and, you know, what...
So for me, and I imagine it's the same for many businesses in my situation, let's say a reasonable amount of work comes online September or October. I don't have any cash in the bank to cash flow the business. I can't meet my cash requirements because I've spent it just keeping the
surviving.
Just with the basics, keeping my alarm system on, keeping my insurance going, keeping the computers running, just so we can keep my websites up, just so that we can start trading. But come week 1, I don't know how to pay the wages on week 2.
Yeah.
I think the JobKeeper is a great idea, but a business in my situation where we've lost 100% of the work, it actually costs me money that I don't have to keep the guys on that, because I have to pay the insurance, I have to keep the staff amenities in place. So again, it's a great idea.
And JobKeeper is wonderful, but like you say, we've got printer contracts, we've got equipment leases, you've got running costs from day to day, things like that. JobKeeper doesn't come close to any of those. No. And where you've been able to defer things, what bothers me is that, yeah, it might have been deferred until September or October. Well, are people going to put their hands up for double payments then? Because, you know, the world's a happy place and everybody's back working. Now you can afford to pay it. Pay it out of what?
Yeah.
You know, even if venues and things start happening, they may still have restrictions on crowds. And people may just not want to go out. Yeah. They might not have the money to go out. There could be 100 reasons why it's going to be a very slow ramp up. I mean, for touring companies and things like that, where shows come into the country, Cirque du Soleil and things like that, when are they ever going to come back? Yeah. You know, there are long-term impacts on this. I mean, my feeling is that this $60 billion that kind of got miscalculated along the way, I think that's going to have to be put into the economy in September or October. Yeah. Because it is going to take a while for things like that to happen, and our associated industries, I think, are some of the people that should be able to take advantage of things like that, because otherwise we're not going to be around.
No, we won't. And there's a lot of businesses that have been really badly affected like we have. So, and we all know about cafes and restaurants, but one advantage they have over an industry like ours is that if they can open tomorrow, their customers can come tomorrow and they spend their money at the business tomorrow and the next day and going forward. When we start getting work, there's really long lead-in times for the job. So it can be weeks and months before we actually get to do the job, and then we're looking at getting paid. So I think that's...
Yeah, where does the cash flow come from? Yeah. What length of time do you think it's going to take for the industry to recover? Is it going to be staged, or is it going to be one day it's fantastic and we're all back to normal?
Yeah, I've given this a whole lot of thought, and I don't wish anyone ill will, but I don't think we're all going to make it, and I think that the businesses that do make it will have a smaller pool of work to deal with. But if there's less businesses, then maybe
it's going to be profitable for them to operate. Maybe
not profitable, but just viable. It's being profitable. I don't see that being for a few years possibly.
Yeah, I've got a similar feeling as you have. So I wish you luck in the future. I thank you immensely for the video that you did put out, and I hope even more people get to see it. It's very heart-wrenching to see that, and I wish you, your family and everybody that you employ all the best, and keep us in touch with how things are going. I know that we want to try and get some kind of unity, get some kind of stronger voice happening so that we can push things out there and get notice for the wonderful industry that we have. So I really appreciate you being part of that industry, Darryl. Right. And let's see how we go.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Okay.
Okay, you can move up the front if you want. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Steve Lynch. Just another night with you. Give me just another kiss, just before the dawn breaks through. 'Cause I'm hurting for your loving, babe. And I'm hungry
That was a great blast from the past. Gary Dunn and his band Hooker. Can't remember when it was, 1980 something or other. I was a much younger lad then. Our next guest, following on from Darryl, he had to dash, by the way. His kids actually play soccer, which is great.
Shame he doesn't play AFL.
Yeah, shame they don't play AFL. But there you go. My next guest this evening is Camille Symmons, who has been in the entertainment industry for a few years. When did you start?
17. Doing doors for bands.
We must.
Broadway Tavern.
Oh gosh, I must have seen you there. Camille has come down because she's got a lot of experience in a number of different fields, and we just want to talk briefly about what's involved in the industry. So do you want to give us a bit of a rundown of what's involved in putting on an event, big one or a small one?
I've been fortunate enough to actually do big events.
Yeah.
And what goes into a big event and the people that are involved in a big event are people that the average Joe Blow wouldn't even consider.
Yeah.
So right from the person who buys the ticket,
Yeah.
Ticketek or Ticketmaster, then when they arrive at the gig, they've got a marquee that they go through. It's a marquee company.
Yeah.
You've got security at the gate, you've got bag checkers, then you walk through and there's usually food concession people.
Yeah.
So those people don't have that gig. And then you've got the fencing company, of course. And before you get to that gig, you've got traffic management that are guiding you through to make sure that you get to that gig. You've got buses that are picking you up from train stations, getting you to that gig.
Yeah.
Before you've even seen the artist.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you get to the gig, you've gone in, you've gone through the food concessions, you're not allowed to bring in your own alcohol, so most people hit the bar. And so the bar, the marquees, food concessions, power. So you've got electricians that are involved with running out all the power for all of these different parts of the site. And then you've got site lighting.
Yeah.
Then you've got everybody that's laid out that site. You've got people that are sitting in small chairs, high chairs, on blankets. You've got runways where they're all this team, huge team of people that go into making that event.
The logistics of putting on an event, some of the really big ones we know are literally a week to put them together. You know, I think of some of the shows, even though a lot of the equipment these days is fairly containerised and the crews are remarkably efficient. I mean, it's one of the most efficient industries that I've ever known, actually. We used to have competitions at the entertainment centre to see how quickly we could pull down a show. You know, we got out at 4 a.m. from that one, let's see if we can beat it. And with people like AJ and Whitey and people like that were very skilled operators, we'd be doing massive shows. Yeah. Oh, it was a work of art, actually, wasn't it? I think that still stays with me to today, you know. But I look at it now and I think, well, where to next? What's the feedback that you're getting from people within industry as to what's happened? How long may it take to recover?
It is. I have never spoken to so many people that just don't know, that are saying, well, we've got this JobKeeper. And it's great. We've got our staff being covered, but I've still got leases I've got to pay. I've still got insurance I've got to pay. I've still got rent. We've got a bit of rent assistance. That's great. But you look at the food concession people, they rely on community events or shows. So their vans and trucks
Parked up.
Yep. Fencing companies can usually get gigs in other places. But toilets, you need toilets because the number of people that you've got
Yeah.
exceeds 100 or 20, there it was, and 500. So they're all sitting there with wonderfully, beautifully decked out toilets that can't be used.
Yeah.
So you talk to them and they say, well, we've had to cancel orders for a new range of toilets that are out. Fencing contractors have stopped buying any more fences, panels.
There'd be staging,
Oh.
equipment, all of that side of things as
I
well,
can't
the
think-
logistic.
You did say that you spoke to Darryl, and I watched Darryl's, YouTube thing, and I was in tears because that really came from the heart, and he showed what it meant for him and his company and his family.
Yeah.
Because when you get involved in this industry, I always say to my staff, I work in this industry, but we're a family. I don't just take you on. I take your rent or your mortgage or your wife and your kids. I take everybody on because it's a family. When you work till 3 o'clock in the morning doing a load out, I worry about your family because you're not going to see your kids because you'll need to sleep in the morning.
Yeah.
None of that. They're all at home at the moment.
Yeah.
And no one knows when.
It's the
this is
uncertainty.
Yeah.
The uncertainty of what next.
And there's no one, unfortunately, our industry, we are the first to put up our hand for a charity event. The first. Because we can get a crowd. Depending on who it is, we can get a crowd. We do everything for free. The crew do everything for free because they're passionate about whatever the charity is. We make millions of dollars for the charity. And yet now, when we are in dire straits, there are companies closing doors, forfeiting on leases, just
walking away.
leaving keys. Now, what happens with them? Nothing.
Exactly.
We've
Nothing.
been lost.
Nothing
The
happens.
government keeps saying this JobKeeper and that's going to look after you, but
It's a very
it's the
small part of
roadies
it.
and it's the crew and it's these people that fall. They talk about people falling within this crack. I'm telling you, that crack is so bloody big.
Yeah.
There are so many people in it, and the government just does not realise. And they see the arts and community, which is where the minister sits. Arts, they see it as musicians. A musician can't be on stage without a staging contractor, can't be and be heard without a sound system, or sing without a lighting system. None of that.
It's a massive hidden workforce. I mean, even tourism, there's a lot in tourism where, people talk about the tourism industry, but a lot of tourism things are not just people going to visit somewhere. They're coming for a show. I mean, some of these shows have got lots of people.
I just wish the tourism industry would stop stealing our figures, and the Hoteliers Association stop stealing our figures, because when I did Andre Rieu, we had 300 in the entourage. So 300 airfares return. We had 300 hotel rooms. We had enough transport for 300 people. They had 3 days there. Rehearsals were 1 day. They went to Rottnest. They went to Margaret River. They are the best people for tourism, because they're all going to go back to their hometowns in Belgium or wherever they come from and say, went to Australia, went to Rottnest, saw the quokkas. But tourism keep taking those figures for their economic impact on Western
how their
Australia.
figures look.
But we look at our figures and go, no, they're our figures, because they aren't going to come here because of tourism. They're coming here because a promoter has put a hell of a lot of money to bring that artist here, and he's bankrolled it, hoping to God it's going to be sellout and he's going to be able to make enough money for the next show.
Yeah.
And he's the one that it filters up to.
Are government ministers aware of this crossover in these figures, where the appropriate kind of help is given, or the appropriate acknowledgement that it's not just tourism, it's actually come here for a reason, and that reason is exactly what you've explained.
No, because every single department in government has an event, and every event, they'll all have an event, and none of them realise the impact that our industry has on our economy. And until those figures are done, we won't get a say, and we don't have a peak body in Australia that is talking on behalf of our whole events industry.
It touches on something that I know that you're very passionate about as well, which we'll talk briefly about, which is crew care or support act, those kind of things that are helping with the mental health of the industry at the moment, or trying to. I think they must be bombarded at the moment. I mean, how are they coping? Or have people just gone home and gone, oh, well, I'll try and deal with it? I mean...
Well, they were given $5 million.
Right.
And which was Support Act, and it's filtered down. And that money has gone to phone lines, helplines, people that, you know, sounds weird, but needs to go to the dentist because they've got a root canal that needs to be done. A guy that needs his appendix done. He's got no health care. These are the roadies that have worked for cash and don't have super, don't have health care. Yeah. And those people are absolutely desperate. They've worked their life with bands, and all of a sudden that stopped, and the majority of them are still renting. They've got a wife to look after, kids to look after, and they have worked from gig to gig. That's how they've survived.
Are they asking for help, or are they too proud to ask for help?
Some of them are too proud. I know some of them that are packing shelves, but don't want to be, you know, don't want anyone to know that they are, which is just our industry. And some that are just, they're embarrassed. People said, well, didn't you save some money? Well, no, we lived from week to week.
We'll finish up with this question, which is, what do you think the future holds for the entertainment industry as a whole? And that's, you know, all sorts of events. But
okay, so in regards to live events, I think Western Australia, where until our borders get opened for the eastern states, once that happens, we'll probably get a lot of eastern states band wanting to tour, because the bands are wanting to tour.
Yeah.
They need the money. Yeah. And I think the local promoters and also the larger promoters will start putting on a group of acts that are Australian based, and they'll be going out and doing festivals and concerts and so forth. I just hope to God that the production companies that are absolutely struggling are there to finally be able to actually support that show.
I agree totally. Now, you've mentioned it before, how many times that you've actually offered support and done charity gigs, and you did help us a couple of years back with a good friend of ours.
Yeah, well, we've had some absolute dear people leave our industry through illness and through suicide. And when someone leaves our industry, it's like we've lost a family member. And when it comes down to raising money to just pay for their funeral, it's tough.
Yeah.
And I'm just glad that I was in a position to be able to help, but I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
You know, Darryl before would have done that many times.
Yeah. Yeah.
Most companies will, because that's a part. Even though we're in opposition to each other, when it comes down to it, we are all part of the family.
Yeah, the industry pulls together. So we're going to finish, and thank you, Camille. John Pekovic, good friend.
I didn't want to mention his name because I probably would have started crying.
Me too.
Yeah.
Thanks, Peko.
our song, we won't be playing it for long. It's just a bit of fun, you see, but we try to stay in key, stay in key.
I like this part, I want this part, I want to sing it on me own. Don't stop me now. Come away with William Tell, stick a fork up his nose and run like hell. What a day when his britches fell for Tell and Switzerland.
Shut your mouth, you naughty boy, you've desecrated our whole song. We practiced it for days and days, and still you got it wrong. You got it wrong.
Everybody knows that I'm a singer in a million, and my mother always said that I would make it big. You're a little twit, and I couldn't give a damn.
The point of the matter is you've ruined our gig. Ruined our gig.
Story's been the same one ever since I joined this crummy band. It's always sing the next one, but the next one never comes. I want to sing in front of girls, all the girls across the land. The only time they'd let me is if we sang in front of nuns.
Gretchen, that's not true, you know we like to give you a chance. But in the meantime, will you settle for a dance?
Well, that was our good mate Pecco, and so many people came together on that particular evening to help raise funds for our good mate, and you can't thank people enough really for that kind of involvement in the industry. And I'm joined by one of the people now that performed there and has performed around Perth and WA in Australia for a long time. Jamie Mercanti, I'm so glad to see you here.
Glad to be here.
Yeah.
Talking about that situation with Pecco was also a very generous individual,
Yeah.
and deserved that response from
Yeah.
his peers.
Yeah.
And by God, it was a fantastic atmosphere that night. I was even happy at the fact that he was still strong enough to actually participate in that event.
Yeah, yeah, and still cheeky enough to do the Hollywood video just after that, where he went through and thanked everybody, and
That's funny, isn't it?
that is something very memorable that we've got to see forever. So,
Agreed.
so a lot of people know you from various performances around the place, but give us a bit of a rundown of what you do. You look after bands, you're a performer, etc. Give us a rundown.
So basically, I've got a bit of a multifaceted career, thankfully, because it sort of keeps a lot of interest, and the variety keeps your interest in the arts. But basically, I went to university initially to study journalism, which I did, but I didn't really have a passion for it by the time I finished the degree. And my other unit that I was working in in the dual nature of what a degree was theatre arts. And I fell in love with theatre arts. So as a young fella, I was lucky enough to learn a bit of guitar. I was a member of St Mary's Cathedral Boys Choir, which gave me the opportunity of learning another genre of music and a great set of skills. So when I went to discover theatre arts, it was kind of taking some of that knowledge, the music knowledge, for example, incorporating it in theatre, And of course, as you progress through, finish your degree and try and find work, I was getting a lot of work as an actor initially for the first couple of years, which was great. A lot of it was conjoined with the music, as in musical theatre or music orientated shows or shows that incorporated music somehow. And so you're going to get, I was lucky enough to get a couple of years worth of work. But in that time, I saw a great drop off the edge when it came to funding. And I realised that I probably needed to stretch my skill set a bit broader if I wanted to stay in the performing arts. And that's when Slim Jim and the Fats came along.
Right. So that
was 86.
So 34 years ago now.
35 years coming up next year. Yeah. So, and the Fats Band basically was there as a backup to a foundation of performing on a weekly basis, which just certainly gave us the opportunity. We're averaging 240 shows per year. We employed an 8-piece band on stage. There was a 4-man road crew minimum per week. I think there was a 8-ton van full of gear and
a crew
and was travelling the countryside and that sort of kept us and we became a proprietary limited company early on,
right,
which was important because it had to be treated as a business. All the members of the band were shareholders in the business. We're earning obviously wages, we're paying out a lot of money in costs and so forth, and it had to be looked upon as being running a genuine small business in a very honest and integral way. And the thing is that, and the reason why I bring this up, especially in relation to what we're going to be talking about, is the fact that even with the advent, for example, of when an ABN number was required by a sole contractor, and the amount of musicians that went from being, explaining their finances to legitimising it with an ABN and tax invoicing, etc. And of course, the business side of it's always been fairly fascinating to me, but I still have a great love for the performance arts factor. So I've been able to still incorporate my love of musical theatre and theatre itself. And I've been working on a lot of productions in the last 5 or 6 years in particular. The Fats Band's been a constant. I've had other forays into different other bits and pieces when it comes to performing arts. I've had chances of working on TV production regarding telethon for 25 years, which is another aspect of the business. So I've also done a lot of MC work for sporting groups. So I worked for the Dockers for 7 years, the Eagles for 7 years, Perth Glory for a year. And currently I'm working with the West Australian participant in the Australian Ice Hockey League, which is Perth Thunder. And I've been working with them now for about 5 years. So even though it's not directly music, it's still part of the performing arts aspect. And so, when we're talking about the issues that have come up because of the COVID-19 restrictions and so forth, it's been a complete cessation.
So from around about March, you would say?
Exactly. Well, the 22nd of March was the official date. The week prior to that, I was in the middle of Pirates at Penzance at the Quarry Amphitheatre. So we got stopped a week early by the town of Cambridge, in lieu of the incumbent.
So how many people would have been involved in a show like that?
75 to 80 people in that.
So they're out of work at the end of that week?
The band, the production people, the main performers were going to get financially benefit from that situation. Everything got stopped immediately.
So, of course, it's not just that, though. It's not like you can go, well, that show's stopped, I'll go and do something else, because literally everything is stopped.
That was it. The whole thing had stopped. So there was a week's worth of bookings that were completely cancelled. The money was refunded. And then by that Sunday, the 22nd, what I have as an agency, booking bands into licensed premises predominantly throughout Western Australia, then stopped completely.
What thoughts went through your mind? How did you feel at that time when you realised what was happening very, very quickly?
Well, twofold. I was actually very impressed that the state and federal governments, be it different political parties, but took the responsibility to do the right thing for the safety of Australians. Okay, so I was extremely happy and rationally, I rationalised it quite early on that it was a necessity. It had to happen. But one of the great concerns I did have, so just to give you an example with Slim Jim Enterprises, which is the agency for musicians being booked into licensed premises. So at the moment, at that time, we were doing about $45,000 turnover a week, and there was between 80 to 100 people, be it musicians, entertainers, or production people in particular, that are affiliated with putting a band on stage. They were all directly affected immediately. There was no warning. It came out of the blue, as you're aware. It was very intense to be able to have to wipe literally what it's been about 3 months worth of work flat out. So you work it out as about 11 weeks. Nearly $500,000 worth of trade has been like.
The problem is that doesn't come back. It's not like if you could trade for the next 3 months, you can double everybody's fees and you're going to get it. In fact, I think, I'm hearing of people that want to, charge less. I mean, musicians are in particular are some of the most underrated people out there anyway.
And I'm not just saying this for their benefit, but they're also underpaid.
Oh,
okay.
Totally agree.
Because the work they do in licensed premises, it's what I call labouring. Okay,
right.
As a musician, there's nothing elite about it. Okay, it all depends on the effort and the quality of that artist going out there and how they can engage an audience when they're intoxicated, distracted by TV screen showing sport or wherever the case may be. So they've got a hard job, and I'm very fortunate that I've been able to look after an elite group of these musicians and entertainers for a lot of years. And I've had a great, apart from being an entertainer myself, I've got a great insight into what makes them tick. Our relationship as an agent with their artist, it's very strong. So the first thing that came to mind, apart from the reality check that this was a necessity that we had to, wear the brunt of these restrictions for the sake of our health and our children's health and our parents' health, etc., the wider community. The next thing that came to mind was the fragility of those entertainers and those musicians by not having an income, not knowing where the next dollar was going to come from, how it was going to affect their wife and children, their partners, their family, their mortgages. I know their story intimately, and you can't help but wear a lot of that responsibility with them. And of course, at the same time, I've got to think about my family, my circumstance, and what I'm going to do next. Now, because of all the way our business is run correctly with the ABN being sole contractors, which are the majority of they're all sole contractors that work through the agency. I had JobKeeper organised to look after my office manager, which is a blessing. My wife does work all the major accounts for the business as well, so that's another great additive. I've got a business that runs from home since I've changed my location. I've got solar panels on the roof, which means I save a lot of money, Mark, and I'm very cost effective the way we run the business. But the fact is, you still kind of feel for your stock, so to speak, or the things that we sell from our shelf, which are the artists. So that's been a huge concern for me. I was very, very concerned with certain individuals that were probably suffering before this the coronavirus restrictions came into place. So, and then I really wanted to have a good, strong connection with them afterwards to make sure they were going to get through this period as comfortably as possible with the effectiveness of being able to get JobKeeper or Job Seeker and supporting themselves. But it is disappointing to go from a business that was that's basically fed my
Well, it's fed your family, it's fed many families, actually.
As I said, between 80 to 100 people per week benefit from the work that comes out of Slim Jim Enterprise.
So are you hearing anything through the venues, through the industry, as to when things might start to open up again?
Well, one thing that's obvious is that there'll be no bands going back. Anything, what I call a band, is anything over 4 people, 4 and above. Anything less than that, they're on a different financial regime, which is very logical.
Right.
Okay, for the restriction of the numbers that we're restricted to having a licensed premises at the moment. So at the moment, I'm getting phone calls again for soloists and duos, particularly. I haven't sold a trio yet since the start of the month.
Right.
So the 3-piece is like the next step up, and I'm presuming that's going to happen about July.
Right.
So at the moment, soloists are going out again, duos are going out, but not in great numbers, because here's the other strange aspect: the venues are not prepared and haven't got their staff trained and or enough staff to actually reopen to the capacity they'd like to,
Right.
depending on the size of their venue and the numbers. So that's a bit of a
It's a waiting game.
it's a bit of a waiting game.
And this is the thing that comes up time and time again. It's the uncertainty of things. I mean, I look at the whole thing, and I'm like you. I agree. It had to be closed down. We had to protect the people, but also there's a responsibility by government, all governments, that if they close us down and stop our ability to earn money, and that isn't necessarily us directly, but it's the people that would be our customers or our clients or the people that go to a pub or a venue.
Sorry, when it comes to the bands, because the bands are obviously the highest echelon of money required to perform at a licensed premises. We're also responsible for bringing the largest number of people in. That's what our responsibility is for asking for those fees. And of course, the irony is that when we can't bring those numbers in, which means we're completely devalued at the moment.
Yeah.
One of the things, and I know what you might be getting onto, there's been a lot of intrigue in the last couple of weeks where I've had certain phone calls from venues asking me for acts for a cheaper rate than normal. Now, the irony is that most soloists that go out and perform on a weekly basis at any venue across the metropolitan area, the value of having a soloist perform for a 3-hour period for the sake of a venue is normally they're playing in front of 50, 60, 70 people. And the equity was there prior to the coronavirus to afford that soloist for that period of time. How, where 100 people basically is now allowed at a venue, a licensed premises, if they've got that capacity of area to have 100 people, or 60 or 70 people even, why then are the venues expecting the act to do it cheaper? What am I missing here?
Yeah.
I mean,
they're trying to make up for the money they've lost, obviously. I mean,
that's
to
what
some.
I'm thinking. That's the excuse.
Yeah.
I'd be disappointed
If that was the case.
if it's not the case.
I know of a venue, I quite often have gone there with my dad.
Sure.
And he emailed them recently and said, when are you going to open back up again? You know, you can have 100 now. And they said, oh, it's not economic for us. Well, I've got to tell you, late last year, I would see crowds of 25, 28, 35, 40 in there, and they were open. Sure. So I do wonder what the mentality is of that kind of thing. Maybe they're just nervous, and maybe they're fearful that people won't go out, and that's quite possible.
Truthfully though, Mark, I do think about this thing in a more of a global situation as well, because I don't think that in Western Australia in particular, we really have got a tag on what's going on in the world. And I do feel that the fallout from the coronavirus, the effects in the US, the effects in China, the effects in England, and tourism in particular, I think it's very hand in glove with hospitality. So I do feel that occupancy at hotels not being very, very small.
10% they said today in Perth.
That's appalling.
10%.
That's just appalling, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
So the fact is that I do feel these things are all part of the same industry.
Yeah.
I do feel that the arts will only ever get back on its feet when tourism is basically in a much better state than what it is currently. And also, as I was mentioning before about the other global entities of consequence, if their economies are destroyed, they won't be travelling.
Yeah.
It will have a profound effect on our economy and employment.
Would you let a touring party of 140 people from America come in here at the moment? No, you wouldn't.
No, not at all.
I mean, it could be 12 months away. I think Michael Chugg said that he expects it to be late.
I spoke to John from Sacramento Events, and Zach even said to me that he does not foresee a tour being arriving on these shores till at least past the financial year next year. So that's July 2021.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about it honestly, Mark. I mean, the summer period that America's in now is when most Australian promoters will go over and buy a tour while it's on a summer tour run of the US.
Yeah, so it could be late next year, actually.
It could well be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Or early the following year.
The world economy and the effect that it has in this country. And that's what I think we have to understand, that with the coronavirus there should be more lessons learnt than just creating stimulus packages for certain people like the arts, for example, which I do feel is something that needs to happen because we have been very affected. I would suggest 99.9% affected in this country because of the restrictions. But one thing we have to account for is that we're in a position here in Western Australia where we have to learn that self-sufficiency and bringing back some fundamentals here to keep ourselves, because this is going to happen again, Mark. I have no doubt in the next 5 to 10 years, this will happen again.
God help us if it does, before we've recovered.
Well, let's hope it doesn't, but I'm sure it will do. And the fact is that we've got to come to a level
we've got to be stronger
in our economy. We've got to have some level of primary industry to fall back on, some level of manufacturing. We don't even make a car in Australia. No. So, and amongst other things that we don't do. And I think we've got to...
It's a big learning lesson, isn't it? I think all of this free time has given us the ability to think a bit and think outside the square. And I know you have. You're passionate about the industry. You're passionate about the people that work for you.
It's easy to say it's the only thing I know, but the truth is that I do see a lot of... when people do running it as a business like yourself, how many, 30, 40 years now, the fact is that we're very good at what we do. We've streamlined we've tested everything that can be tested without...
Who would employ me?
The truth is there's a massive skill set that goes beyond just the specifics. And the fact of the matter is that, a country without an arts culture, right, is something that you just
pretty boring.
Can't conceive. You know what I mean? And don't forget when I talk about the arts is not just
music,
theatre arts or the performing arts or bands or whatever the case may be. It does go a step further. I mean, to me, sport is entertainment. Okay? The amount of production that's required for, and talent, and music talent, and MCs and so forth. I know that from working for different sporting organisations over the years. It's a massive part of our industry. And the irony is that I think someone was mentioning it outside prior to me coming in. There's been so many figures thrown around about what the arts are actually worth to the Australian economy. I heard 14 billion. I've heard 16 billion. I've heard 20 billion. Outside, I heard 131 billion. Now, ironically, when I did hear the figures of 14, 16 and 20 billion, it did not include arts affiliated with licensed premises. Not your pub, your club, your taverns. You see what I'm saying? So obviously it was going to be much more than 14, 16 or 20 billion, but 131 billion, if that does, I didn't ask the question, if that incorporated the licensed premises side of the game. Well, I'm sure it didn't make it up from 20 billion, but that's a lot of money. That's a massive industry. How it can be disrespected and not supported, knowing full well that it's all government regulations that have created a cessation in business in every form, is just mind-boggling.
I think
honestly, have you watched football since it's been shown on television in the past week?
No.
It's
for about 5 minutes. I was bored out of my trolley, mate. I just walked away.
The atmosphere, even with canned applause, it's just... Or canned noise, crowd noise.
I think you've opened up a number of topics, and I think we'll be doing another program, and you've mentioned a few things that have sparked ideas in my head, and I think what we'll do is we'll investigate some of these things further. And
with the cessation of business for a lot of people, there's a lot of issues when it comes to mental health, and that's very sad. And it's not because musicians are more fragile than others. In fact, I would argue the fact that at least a musician has got some level of sanctuary in their art form.
Well, Scott Morrison today said our industry will endure longer than others. I'm not quite sure what he meant by that.
What that means also?
Endure all of the crap longer than others? Or maybe he just thought they had the ability.
Unable to do our jobs and perform and engage people and bring people together and maximise the potential of their social time when they've got time away from work, so they can forget about the the negativity or the hardship of going to work, etc. I don't know how we're supposed to sustain ourselves. I mean, I'll tell you honestly, when the situation arrived that there was cessation of all activities regarding the arts, I actually applied for a job as a CEO of a company. Okay, so
You've got to do what you've got to do to support your family. We're going to play a video of Slim Jim and the Fats.
Ah, unreal.
As we get ready for our next guest, our final guest for tonight.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks, mate.
I really do appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much for doing this.
Okay, so thanks, Slim Jim. That was great, and thanks for everything that you had to say. I know there's a lot more that we've got to say about that, and I think we'll be doing more of these shows from the feedback that we're getting already. So, awesome. My next guest is another man about town. In fact, this week, man about the state, I would say, Mr. Darren Reid. Multi-talented, I've got to say. I've seen you perform, mate.
Thanks, Mark. I'm flattered and almost blushing. If I wasn't so brown, you'd be able to see my rosy cheeks.
So, Darren, you've got a couple of businesses, but you're a performer and an entertainer. You're out and about a lot in various venues. Mm-hmm. So, give us a bit of a rundown of what you do and what happened early this year that, like everybody else, might have affected
may have had
business.
a bit of an impact on you. So obviously, I am a keen news watcher, so I watch a lot of news. I like news and current affairs, and I'd seen this COVID or the coronavirus worry start to pick some momentum. We were fully booked, and I remember Sandy, my PA, saying to me, "Oh, we've just had a cancellation on a national conference, it was at the stadium
Right.
for a national brewers thing. It was on the Thursday, and I knew that wasn't a good sign.
So that would have been what, March? Was that March or February?
March, yeah. So we'd done our last show. We'd done our pub show on the Friday and the Saturday, and then from there it was just imagine. So we have a big board, for the band, and in the office it tells us the shows that are coming up, etc., etc. And then more or less it was like a cancellation of an airport. It was like
ding 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 ding.
Fog bound, and it just kept happening. And then obviously the pubs got closed. We got shut down. And because I'm in the event space to a certain extent, and we hire LED screens and some other stuff. And we also manage the Camfield for the in-house production, etc.
Right.
So there's other things that we all of a sudden realise that, our business, and then the funny thing is, talk about a triple whammy. I'm also in the oil and gas space as well. So It's like, it couldn't have really got any worse with every conceivable.
Well, it was pretty good. I think I paid 88 cents a litre for petrol at one point, so that was darn good, but I wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah, no. That's an interesting thing, isn't it? If you think about how many planes are grounded around the world right now, and you think about how good this is for the environment. I mean, it's interesting because I think, what is the world going to be like post-COVID? And I give that a lot of thought. I try and be circumspect to a certain way. I start thinking about, what I'm going to do. And I've already noticed a difference in attitude from my guys that wanted to play lots and lots of gigs and get as much work as possible. And now some of them are now saying, well, maybe now I've experienced life. Because I'll tell you, musicians, performers, event people like yourself, we are people of passion.
Yeah.
What we do, I know how long you've been in business for, and I know a bit about your background. I remember once I was driving home listening to you on 6PR talking about your record shop, right?
Yeah.
And it was a great story.
Yeah.
It really was. I was riveted. And I think about that, and I know so many people in the industry. We've heard from Darryl. I've known Darryl. I used to hire his first Chrome Light show.
Oh, wow.
The joy of this.
Oh, wow.
Way back then, so we all know each other. We know each other. We're a very small knit. But what I've been trying to get across is the message that events, music, tourism, and etc. is a really big part of West Australia's economy and also psyche.
Yes.
When we talk about social, emotional, when we talk about and if we forget the categories, we forget. This is what I've been trying to do. Forget original, forget covers, forget, dancing, forget DJs, forget all of these boundaries. It's really, forget football, forget footballers, forget waffle, forget AFL, forget all these things, and just put it down to entertainment.
Yeah, I agree.
So outside of our work, football is entertainment. Yeah. AFLs are great entertainers. I mean, watching football is an entertainment. It's an event. We go see it. It provides work for ushers, it provides work for cleaners, it provides work for groundkeepers, it provides this is my point of view, and this is why I've been doing the Smile and Wave tour, just to get the message. No one likes a, oh God, we're the only people you should be feeling sorry for message.
Yeah, no, I think we've got to do it from a positive perspective of what we want to get out of all of this, what practices we might change, maybe bring back the value in the eyes of the public as to the skill that's involved in being an entertainer or being in the entertainment industry in one form or another. It seems to be very disparate. It's, there's people working and pulling crowds into venues and getting less than some of the staff that are working in the venue. They wouldn't be working there if those people weren't pulling in a crowd. And, I see and have spoken to people, and people are gobsmacked when they hear what some entertainers are earning. And maybe there's a lack of respect. Maybe music is omnipresent everywhere, so it's lost some of its value until you get to the stage where it's a Cirque du Soleil or a Roger Waters at the arena, and then people spend a lot of money to go and see them.
It's a big subject. Do we do it to ourselves? Probably.
I think there's a little bit of, that comes into it.
Do we downplay it? I think that Australians don't like to up people to a certain extent. So Americans, like, we don't have a superhero. I remember a friend of mine saying this, Australia doesn't have a superhero. We wouldn't have one, right? And not that I want to be a superhero, but I'm just saying we're not big on adulation. We go, he's pretty good. He's all right, And the other thing is, like, when we charge on the door for special shows, you'll always get someone who'll say, I'm not paying $10 to see Darren Reid.
I've always felt
that's because they can get it free.
Yeah.
And the reason why they can get it free, unfortunately, is it's a self-leveling marketplace, meaning that someone will do it for free. They'll play for free, and that's the whole thing of, will you play to get a profile, or we all have. So you've got to accept that.
What some of the things that have happened in the industry is people have started to get a bit innovative about doing things. We've seen the Zoom concerts from people's backyards, and big shout out to James and Bloom. It's been a great way of them keeping in contact with their audience and grow their audience.
Out of mind, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, sure.
Some people have been comfortable, it appears, just sitting at home and not doing very much at all. But you actually just recently, I think you're in the middle of it, aren't you? You've just been dashing around the state, doing all sorts of stuff. What was the motivation behind that?
Well, there was a few issues in the industry that I could see. I didn't want to represent any organisation, because what I was going to do was highly provocative. I was going to perform in the streets without any permits. I was going to stop and talk and do Facebook Live, and show our state, do some tourism, show people what they can do in our state, but also talk about music and the position we're in. Talk about what is the events industry. Like I just said, and that was where and I still am. I'm driving.
So you're going down south now? You're going down to the southwest, or?
I'm in Fremantle, Rockingham, Mandurah, and Australind.
How viewers on Facebook and stuff like that? What kind of figures?
It's really got traction. So I've obviously got my friends page, which is me. That's Darren with one R, R-E-I-D. And then I've got the Soul City group, which is spelled, because everyone searches Darren with 2 R's. So it's Darren Reid with 2 R's and the Soul City group. The band page is up to over 13,000 and has a traction when they call reach of over 100,000.
Wow.
And I talk about what I'm going to do. I talk about, I just talk to people as me, which I've never done before. I've exposed myself. That sounds good. I've exposed myself a lot more. Even though I'm even going to laugh in the group. I've exposed myself a lot more because what I liked was a bit of mystique. I like to get on stage and do the show. The Darren and the Soul City Groove show, which is an energetic, vibrant, lead singer kind of vibe. But recently I've been talking more than, I said Tony Bullymore when they pulled Tony Bullymore.
Oh, wow. Oh, yes.
I feel like I'm Tony Bullymore, because what happens with Facebook Live is, as soon as you tune in, no one's listening. But the longer you talk, the more and more people get in. Right?
It grows.
So it grows. So you've got to look at the organic growth.
What do you think now is the kind of the short-term future for the music and entertainment industry, and what do you hope for the longer term? I won't.
Well, I see a sugar hit, so I see that. Mind you, for me, it doesn't matter, right? Not being funny. When it gets back, we will get our work. We've got work. We have our venues that we work with. We have our audience to come and see us, right? And we'll probably have a big peak, and it will plateau somewhere to where it used to, which was pretty strong and healthy. What I worry about probably is more so the long-term event space. These businesses that have been around for a long time, take JobKeeper out of them, as you probably heard previously. I worry about that more than I do. I think that the music industry will it'll always, it's always,
It'll bounce back.
it always has
To what extent, I think, is a big unknown.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that all of our friends that are in the industry and the associated businesses, I do hope there's a way through this. I do feel that there's a bit of a responsibility from the government that closing down venues is not necessarily what we would have wanted to do. We all accept that it was needed to be done, but to have business switched off is something through, lack of choice, really is something that needs to be addressed. I hope that they can find a way through to supporting the industry, and that it does grow and it becomes a healthy industry again, not just healthy in the sense of business-wise, but healthy for the people that are in it. Because there's so many people tonight have said how mental stress, that even people that didn't suffer from stress before have gone through situations that are just not right. And I hope that really that's part of the industry that comes back even stronger. And I'd like to thank you for coming along tonight. I'm sure we'll talk more.
Just on closing, you're a man that's run a business that it has a high level of passion. I don't know if people know what Pro Copy do, but if you've got some old videos and you want fanning photos, etc., you want them to charge them, turn them into data. That's what they do. They do lots of other services, and you've got a great business and you're very good at it. So we respect that. In reference to what I think, I hope that people value entertainment, music, and I hope that we get to an even keel. I hope that the government recognises what we do on a social, emotional side. That that the Romans built the Colosseum. We just built a big stadium, right? Entertainment and events are important. And so are council events, and so are all these things.
Yeah, I think it's vital that this has got to come back, and it's got to come back sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and hopefully we're not the first to give and the last to get.
Yeah.
And I'm not even talking about myself, right? Yeah. I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about the likes of Darryl that you've heard from today, the likes of many other companies. My good friend Jared Hawke. There's a number of people. Jared and I go back. I think about this and I go, wow, all the effort that man's put into his business, Darryl's put into his business, Neil Campbell, Audio Technic, all of these companies that are going to, the state needs them, they need you, they need all of them to survive. Hopefully we can get some help.
Yeah, thanks, Darren. We're going to finish with a track from Darren, and then I'm going to come back and say my bit. And thank you once again, Darren. That was fantastic, mate.
Good to see you, mate.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, boys. Cheers.
Somebody was spreading rumors about better days are coming. Why was I humming as if I knew one and the same? But I just whispered your name. Somebody was saying something about there being an end to tyranny. But when they asked me what would I do if that day came, I only whispered your name. Everyone's got their own opinion and protects their own dominion. No doubt for them it's true, but I tell them what I really believe. My only worry is protecting you, yeah. No one should ever be lonely. You don't find someone to care. Well, ask me if I dare to answer who could carry that flame. I only whispered your name.
Well, thanks to all of our guests this evening. Darryl Edwards from Matrix, Camille, Jamie and Darren. I'm hoping that we get some positive feedback from what we've started tonight, and hopefully everybody can share this, get the message out there. This industry really needs your support, and I'm talking not just the industry themselves, but the general public. So if this message gets out to more and more people, we'd really appreciate it. There's a lot of good people really hurting at the moment, and we acknowledge the fact that it's across the country. It's not just this industry, but this industry itself has been largely ignored. And it's something that people are very frustrated about, and when there's a level of uncertainty, when they don't know what is going to happen in the future, that makes it even worse. So just to give you a bit of an idea, we did play a video earlier and give you a bit of an idea of how many people are involved in the industry. But this is actually the events industry and the breakdown. So you can have another look at the extent to which a person performing on stage or an event happening somewhere, the number of people that are involved in it. It's not just a handful. There is a petition, we know, on the government website. You can go and sign up for that. The last time we looked, there was 31,000 people had shown their support for the industry. So I'd ask you and everybody that you know, go out there and sign that petition. Show the support for the industry, get the government talking and doing something about the industry, not just telling us what they're going to do. They're going to have another committee meeting and they're going to come back in a month and have another committee meeting. By then, there will be more people in a worse situation. So this industry needs help, and it needs it fairly quickly. Having said that, we've got some great performers, and Alan Pithers, one of our good friends, is a marvellous piano player. Is a particularly great version of a track to play you as we head on home. Thanks very much for watching. Spread the news, get it out there, and good night from us.